Okay, I'm going to try to take everybody through a quick screencast of how to use a system called Tide, which allows teachers or site coordinators to administer the OGT online. And then I'm going to show you Ohio's secure testing browser, which allows the student, once you set them up in that system to test, to do the operational and practice tests. Unfortunately, when a student does a practice test, there's no setup pattern or there's no setup test for OGT, just the errors test. So at this point, I'm going to get into showing you some of the screens. We're going to start with teachers and site coordinators kind of understand the Tide site. So let me share my screen. And again, this is always a bit slow just because we have to go through, I'm sharing this live. So the first thing that I'm going to do tomorrow when I show this is give you the exact site. I just always Google Tide ODE login. When I Google that, almost always the first result that pops up. This is the URL. I'll share this with everybody tomorrow. It's not, www. something simple. So again, I'll give it to you tomorrow. But this result, where you can see the Tide here and the interface, out of all these pieces that you're seeing with like TA practice site, online reporting, yada, 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 we're only going to be looking at Tide and TA interface. So let's start with Tide. And if you're saying, hey, I don't have a username or password, no problem. Again, I'll set you up with this tomorrow, but it's important once you get past the simple logging in to know how all this works. So let's jump into Tide and I'll explain as we go. So as this page loads, you'll be given a username and password, which more than likely be your school email and a password that you create. Once you have that, of course, I have mine already in there, you can log in. This portion, not the TA interface, not the test administer interface, but the Tide login has different roles. In my situation, I have, I think, building test coordinator as one of my options, but I'm going to start this with select test administration. What we want to do is start with Ohio State Test 2018-19. That's box 1. And you'll select user. I believe I've made everybody to this point that I've given access to this a TA, a test administrator. So I'm just going to log in as a TA because I believe no one that I've been able to give access to this, I can grant you anything higher than this. So let's go ahead and log in as TA. Once you put that in the drop-down menu, this can't be changed. This state with an asterisk, it is what it is. It's in there. Also, the district DON and the school DON can't be changed. It's locked in, and that's a good thing. That's what we want. So now we have Ohio State Test 18-19, test administrator as your user role in these 3 categories that are already locked in. We're good, and we can click our submit button. Once we've clicked our submit button, you'll have 2 kind of simple sides to your screen, this preparing for test and administering tests. Just so you know, the kind of big reason for even getting involved with Tide, it's to input student information. In the central office, we have input hundreds of students already, but I can promise you that, as site coordinators, it's really going to be your main job. As we go through the year, we may not have included every student that will test, so you may need to use this system to input someone. So Tide, and again, not the TA interface, is where we A, put in students so they have the ability to test, and B, we can also use it on the administering test, monitor their test progress to make sure that once they're done with the test, the results have been counted and the system is recognized. So we're going to look at student information and we're going to click. So we have the ability to view, edit, and export. Students under this tab, and then under test settings tools, we have the ability to view, edit, and export. So let's go ahead and just click on for information, the view and export. So what we're going to do in this screen is look up and make sure a student is in the test system. And I'm just going to use this whole example because I know she's in here. A student named Amber Wilson. I'm going to put in her full last name, and hopefully I can spell that correctly. Wilson last name, Amber first name, and it's very simple. It already defaults to Don as both the school and the district. I don't need to worry about the SSID presently, but I will need to know what the SSID is in order to help Miss Wilson test. So the way I look her SSID up is searching, and the search did return one result, so I want to view that result. And when it pulls up, I'm going to see all of Amber's information here, and you can see Amber Wilson. And if you didn't know her SSID, it's given you right here, this ADP. When a student comes to test it, you need to be able to come inside and look them up and find their SSID, because you'll see in a moment when the student goes to log in that if you don't have an SSID, you will not be able to test. So again, for the test administrator status, now that I'm looking at this because I'm not logged in as a test administrator, you have the ability to look students up. It does not appear. In fact, I'm 100% certain you cannot add any new students. So I know one of the responsibilities could be adding a student. That means that you can look them up, but you can't add them. So you just need to connect with us at the central office in order to add them. But it is very pivotal that you have the ability to come up and specifically find this SSID, which is this, and then the first name that would be used in the system. These are two key elements to testing someone, knowing what first name is in the system, and then knowing this ADP and the 6-digit number. Those are essential for allowing someone to test. If you do not know that information, they can't test. If you have multiple students testing once, you need to find the first name in the system and their SSID, and either print out the sheet, up here. There's the ability to print. You can do the all test tickets if you've looked up multiple students, or you can just print out the one test ticket. But the student must know the first name that's in the system for them, as well as this SSID number, which is this number here, in order for you to test them. So again, I'm sorry, I thought the TA, the test administrator privilege, would give everybody the ability to add new students into the system. It does not, but you can look up existing students and get their SSID and first name, which is key for testing students. So again, I'm going to go back to my home page just to focus in on what we want. Student information, we're going to go look at view, edit, export. You're going to come into this screen. The district and school's already set up. We're not going to worry about the SSID. You just need to know the student's first and last name, and then you can go ahead and search for them in the system. You need to, again, pull out their first name as well as their SSID once you search for them, and either print it out or write it down for when test. So this is tied aspect of the system. Now let's go take a look at the TA interface, the test administrator interface. So I'm going to close this tab, and I'm going to go back to this dashboard. When you close this tab, and if you have just kind of done the tide, this dashboard should be your next tab up. You shouldn't have to reopen it. Again, I'll give you the URL to this tomorrow just in case this gets closed. But the test administrator interface, the login that you use for Tide, you'll use for this TA interface, the test administrator interface. So again, this is probably going to be your school email, and this happens all the time. It's saying that there's a pop-up blocker that's disabling this. The way to take this pop-up blocker off is to go into the address bar, and as I hover my mouse, it says, it said that you can allow this pop-up, basically. So we want to go to this little tool in the corner, and then we're going to say always allow. It's fine, and then we'll click done. Unfortunately, when you do that, it does not get to where you want to go automatically. You have to refresh the page, and then it pops up in a small box. That box then goes away, and you're brought to this screen. In this screen is where you can choose to test the student. We are able to choose what test we're giving that day is by clicking the plus symbol on Ohio graduation test and then choosing what test. So if it's Monday during the last month, or I'm sorry, if it's Monday during the last week of month, and we're going to give the reading test, we would check reading. And that's very difficult to see, and I apologize, but there actually is a black check mark in that box. And then it's, again, a little bit covered up here, but there's a button that says start. If I go ahead and do that, it's going to bring me to a screen where I get a session ID. This is ultra critical. Ohio, and then you have this 4 kind of letter and digit combination, and then 2 digits at the end. The things that you need to know to test somebody are the student's first name as in the system, that SSID with ADP and 6 digits, as well as the session number. Right now, if a student needed the reading test and I knew their first name and their SSID and I gave it to them, in the session ID, which is generated from your TA dashboard, it has to be the teacher or the site coordinator, from your TA dashboard or your TA interface, I'm sorry, you'll be given a session number. Now, all this may not make sense, but I'm going to flip to the student perspective. So as a teacher, I need to know first name, SSID, and session number. I need to then be able to give that to the student, and the student will go into what is called the Secure Ohio Testing Browser. Okay, I'm going to go to desktop and I'll show you. This is very complicated to put on the computer. Unfortunately, we're going to have to wait for the non-IT team to load this on the more computers. This is the student goes. It's this Ohio Secure Browser Launch. We go, or the student, I'm sorry, when they digitally input their information, will go to this Ohio Secure Browser. Again, we talked about it. Okay, it's saying that I can't do, and I'm going to have to show this. I'm going to have to show this information to you tomorrow more in depth because you cannot have the internet up as well as this private browser up because it thinks that you could shift back and forth and possibly look up answers on the internet. So it is pretty secure in that way. But as you can see here, you put in, or a student will put in their first name. This student ID is the SSID. That's the ADP and the 6 digits. And then that Ohio, a combination of 2 letters and 2 numbers and then 2 more at the end. Once the student puts that in and they click this green sign in, you'll be, and I'm going to flip back to my screen, you'll be able to see, sorry, I have to close that first. So I'm going to flip back. I apologize for flipping around. Once the student puts in the session ID, their first name and SSID, you'll be given, and it's kind of fitted out here, but it will say 6 students essentially right in this box want to test. You'll click that little link, and then there will be a menu that opens up with little green check boxes. You'll check to give them access to the operational test, and they'll begin testing. I know there's quite a bit of information. This screencast is just kind of a precursor to us doing the live training. So you can watch this after we've trained just to kind of jog your memory. I know, again, it's a lot of information. We'll practice this in depth tomorrow. This hopefully will jog your memory and give you some extra tips when you work with a student in your group, you can be helpful to them and make sure all this information gets properly put. All right, so that is our screen test for today. And yeah, I hope that that was slightly helpful. I know that it can be a little overwhelming with how much information there is to share or to process. But again, we will go over that at length tomorrow. So please let me know if you have any questions. Thank you all.